Welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. Well, after a great comeback from Luke McClung last game against Ryan Shute, will today's game live up to that excitement? I'm hoping it does. I believe it will because every single game that I've done from Season 1 to Season 2, there's been so many surprises in this tournament. So I'm sure today we will definitely have a lot of surprises, but honestly, I have no clue what to expect because both of the people, like I've been telling you guys, we have a lot of new people coming on and a lot of old people, but two people are coming onto the podcast for the very first time, and the two contestants we have today are Mr. Scott Price and Ryan Dietz. So how are you guys doing today?
Feeling great, Todd.
Yeah, like I was telling you, Ryan, before we recorded, I was like, hey, I appreciate you guys for reaching out, saying, hey, let's test our union trivia knowledge, see what we know, what we don't know. So, thank you guys both for saying, yeah, let's shoot it. Let's come out and see what we know. So, thank you guys both for reaching out to me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no problem. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. But like I've been telling everybody, if you're new from Season 1, that the round of 16 is going to feature a theme, and I've already done 2017, 2014. Well, today's theme for Ryan and Scott is the year 2018 for the Philadelphia Union. So you guys probably don't have to think too hard, maybe a little bit, but definitely not anything like Ryan or Luke did, or even like Ed and Michael. So hopefully you guys are quick to these answers and everything. But I do want to say the questions will deal with the regular season only unless I say otherwise. But like I mentioned, you guys are both your first time ever onto the podcast. And anytime I've had anybody new come onto the podcast, I always want to find out how they got into the Philadelphia Union. So, Ryan, I'll start with you first. How did you get into the Union?
So during the initial season, I was actually in basic training, and my grandmother would send me newspaper articles about the team. So, I think I still have some of those saved somewhere in one of the boxes. But yeah, I've been a soccer fan before that, obviously, and found out that Philly was getting a team and was very excited to become a fan.
Absolutely. What about you, Scott?
Well, I mean, I would say I've been aware of the team from day one. I remember I was like 11, 12 during the initial season. And I remember staying up late watching the first game against Seattle. I couldn't tell you more than like Latou on that team, but I remember watching it. I meant to go to games for years. I didn't get to a game until I think 2013, 2014. And it was against Montreal Impact, and it was a 0-0 game, but just being in the stands, fell in love with the game of soccer. Now I'd consider myself a big soccer fan, and I don't know if you noticed this, but I actually a couple years ago during the 2018 season, I was an intern for the Philadelphia Union.
That's awesome.
In events, so I don't really have any background information. I was just in the front office, but I worked for the team during this season, so maybe that'll be a leg up for me.
Hey, yeah, absolutely. And I was going to say, I guess it's a good thing you weren't the intern that leaked the picture of Kevin Durant when he was meeting in Chester with Jay Sugarman and Jim Curtin, because I don't think that worked out too well for that intern when he took a picture of Kevin Durant. It blew up on social media. I'm sure he probably got an earful from that. But
I'm sure. I'm sure. The only thing I found out early was I saw the alternate uni for 2019. I found that in November, but I didn't take a picture. I didn't let that out, but I had seen it. I saw that early. That was the only thing I saw early.
Yeah, hey, I mean, it's still cool. I mean, whether you're an intern, whether you're covering the team, whether you're a fan, doesn't matter. I mean, just paying attention to Union soccer, being involved one way or another. I mean, it's a blast and everything. And yeah, it sucks that last season when I was supposed to officially start my first year as a season ticket member, COVID hit, obviously, and couldn't take advantage of the full perks and everything, but it was still cool, to be able to go to 6-7 games, I think it was, and did not expect that at all. And now looking forward to the 2021 season. Hopefully no lockout happens so we can officially, my sister and I, enjoy our first official season as season ticket members. But yeah, I love hearing how you guys became a fan, and I did not know that, Scott, at all, that you're an intern. So let's see what knowledge you have for the 2018 season. So today we're going to be starting off in 5 and 25, which is where you guys go and have 5 questions in 25 seconds. Like I said, I'll ask you guys 5 questions each. The clock starts after I read the first question. If a contestant doesn't know the answer, they can say skip, and we can go back to the question if time permits. Each question will be worth 2 points each. And Ryan, we are going to start with you first, sir.
Awesome. Let's go.
All right. So, Ryan, there we go. We got everything up. So, Ryan, your first question is, who did the Union beat in the 2018 semifinals in the U.S. Open Cup?
DC United?
Who led the Union in goals in 2018?
Pass.
Who wore number 14 for the Union in 2018?
Pass.
Who led the Union in red cards in 18?
18. Oh, man. Pass.
What's the most goals the Union scored in a game in 18?
4.
Oh, one off.
Man, that was quick.
Yeah, it was. 25. I mean, it goes so fast at 25 seconds. It's like,
That's fun.
Yeah, exactly. So that last one, what was the most goals the Union scored in 2018? That was 5. So you were one off. I mean, you were right on it. And that came against Minnesota United in a 5-1 Union victory. On that day, Corey Burke scored. Ali Bedoya scored. Fafa Pico had 2 goals that game, and El Sino scored the last goal for the Union. The next question I asked after that was, who led the Union in red cards in 2018? So I did kind of mention this in the last episode with Ryan and Luke, where Ryan brought up the fact that he was down in Atlanta in 2018 to see Ali Bedoya and Harris Mandunian both pick up red cards in that game against Atlanta United.
Oh, I remember that one.
Yes, sir. And also, Corey Burke and Jack Elliott both had red cards on the year, so each of those guys had 1 red card on the year, and you had a choice of 4 players, so it's like you said, I mean, you have 25 seconds, you get 5 questions. It's like, if you can't think of something right away, it's like, okay, I'm just going to skip, and then hopefully time permits that I can go back to it. So the third question I asked you, though, was who wore number 14 in 2018 for the Philadelphia Union? That was Fabian Herbers, another player that we've talked about the last 2 episodes here. Love Fabian Herbers. Kind of still wish he was a Union player. Yeah, he's not great, but I think he's definitely an MLS level player, and it was great to see him score a couple goals last season for Chicago. But again, none of us are Chicago Fire fans, but you'd love to see former Philadelphia Union players have success no matter where they're playing. The second question I asked you, though, who led the Union in goals in 2018? That would be Fafa Pico.
That's right.
He had 10 goals this season. And who did the Union beat in the 2018 semifinals and the U.S. Open Cup? This is just such a random question I asked you, and that was Chicago Fire, and the Union won that game 3-0. So unfortunately, Ryan, you didn't pick up any points in that round, but I mean, there's still plenty of chances for you to pick up points in later rounds.
All right, Scott, do better than me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll try.
So Scott, now you know what you're in for. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go, Scott. Your first question. Who did the Union lose to in the 2018 U.S. Open Cup?
Houston Dynamo.
Who led the Union in assists in 2018?
Coach Cal.
Who wore number 7 for the Union in 18?
Coach Cal.
Who led the Union in yellow cards in 18?
Elliott.
What's the most goals the Union conceded in 18?
4.
Ooh, and way before the buzzer went off. So you absolutely killed it, Scott. So that answer for the last one would be 4. That came against LAFC and Montreal Impact. The second to last question I asked you was, who led the Union in yellow cards in 2018? That would also be Fafa Pico. He had 7 on the season, so he led the Union in goals scored, and he also led the Union in yellow cards for the year. Who wore number 7 for the Philadelphia Union in 2018? That would be Mr. David Accam. And unfortunately, it never worked out for David Accam here in Philadelphia. Our biggest signing at that time from Chicago Fire, I think we paid $1.2 million for David Accam. Had a lot of hope for him, and it just never panned out. The second question I asked you, though, was who led the Union in assists in 2018? You were quick to this. That was Dushkal, and he had 18 assists on the season. And then the first question I asked you, who did the Union lose to in the 2018 U.S. Open Cup? It was, unfortunately, Houston Dynamo 3-0. but not bad at all, Scott, because you went 3 for 5 in that round and you got 6 points. So very impressive for your first category right there, Scott. And we're going to stick with you to true and false. And this is really self-explanatory. I'll ask you guys each 5 true or false questions, and the questions will be worth 1 point each. So, Scott, your first question for true or false is, true or false, the biggest winning streak the Union had in 2018 was 3.
True.
That was false. So the biggest was 4, and that came against New England twice, New York City, and DC United, and that happened from basically the beginning of August to the end of August. Your second question, Scott, though, is true or false? Anthony Fontana scored the Union's first goal of the 2018 season.
False.
That is true. I was surprised. I knew Anthony Fontana scored on his debut against New England, but I totally forgot that New England was the first team that the Union played during the 2018 season, and the Union went on to win that game 2-0, and ever since then, it seems like Anthony Fontana has New England's number.
He does.
Yeah, he does indeed. Here we go. Question number 3 for you, though, Scott, is true or false? The Union had 2 players on the 2018 roster that were born in England.
Other than Elliott, true.
It is indeed true. So Jack Elliott and then Jay Simpson. And that was the last season Jay Simpson was on the Union's roster, and then the rest was history. I think he's playing again at Leyton Orient, who the Union signed him from. But yeah, what a signing, I guess, that Ernie thought he was going to be for the club, never panned out. And
one good game.
Good game against Sporting Kansas City where he scored that brace, and then the rest was history. All right, Scott, though, question number 4 for you is, true or false, the Union had more draws at home than they did on the road in 2018?
I'm going to go with false.
It is false. They had 3 away draws and they had 2 home draws. And your last question for true or false, Scott, is, true or false, the Union had a first-round pick in the 2018 Super Draft?
True.
That is false. And so the Union traded that pick away in 2016 to New England for then New England Revolution striker Charlie Davies, who, again, another player that it seems like this team always struggles trying to find strikers. Another player that battled with injuries and just didn't pan out, was near the end of his career. But not bad at all. You picked up 2 more points, Scott. You went 2 for 5, so that puts your total to 8 points so far. And Ryan, like I said, now's your chance to start picking up some points. So are you ready, sir?
I am ready. Let's go.
Here we go. Question number 1 for you, Ryan. True or false? The Union recorded 11 clean sheets in 2018.
False.
That was true. Andre Blake had 10 on the season, while McCarthy, he had 1. Question number 2, though, Ryan. True or false? Elsinio scored the last goal of the 2018 regular season for the Union.
False.
It is false. Corey Burke got that last goal, and that came against New York City, which the Union lost that game 3-1. I believe David Villa scored a goal that game. I think an own goal happened, and then I forget who scored the third for New York City. But question number 3 for you, Ryan. True or false? The Union had 3 players on their 2018 roster that had represented the United States men's national team either at some point during the 2018 season or prior.
True.
That is indeed true. So that would be Ali Bedoya, CJ Sapong, and Fafa Pico. Question number 4 for you, Ryan, is true or false? The Union had a positive goal differential that season.
True.
And that was false. The Union scored 49 goals on the season while they had 50 goals against.
Jeez.
And yeah, I know, right? It's like the Union weren't bad at scoring goals, but 50 goals conceded, that was way too many goals. And I think that's one of the first things that Ernst Tanner said when he took over this team. He's like, yeah, every year I want to see this goals against drop, because the years prior, the Union have given up way too many goals. And I would say from the 2019-2020 season, the Union have been a much better defensive team. And it's yet to be seen what's going to happen in 2021 with Mark McKenzie gone now to Genk, and the Union have yet to replace him. I guess ideally, most fans would think it's going to be Jacob Glesnes and Jack Elliott, but then it's the question of, okay, well, with us playing in the Champions League, you're going to have to rest these guys. So what will the Union do? I don't know. There's still plenty of time left. Hopefully we get some announcements soon. But question number 5 for you, Ryan, is true or false? Fafa Pico led the Union in game-winning goals.
I'm going to say false.
It is false. Do you want to take a stab at it and guess who led the Union that year?
I would assume Ilsinho.
It was not El Senior. It was Corey Burke. I was surprised that it was Corey Burke on the season. Corey Burke did have a great 2018 season, and then 2019 was a year to forget for him, and even most of 2020. So it was great to see Corey Burke back with the Union this season, scored a couple goals, and really looking forward to seeing Corey Burke either start for the Union in 2021 or, again, just come off the bench when we need a goal or to add on to that difference. But not bad at all, Ryan, because you went 3 for 5, so that gives you 3 points, and the score is Scott 8 points with Ryan 3 points. So like I said, Ryan, you need to pick up some points, and that's big for you, though, to pick up those 3 points. But before we get into the final category, which is name the Union player, I do want to talk about, is it a concern to either one of you guys that the Union have yet to make a signing? I know I talked about this in a previous episode, but I want to hear your guys' thoughts on that. So, Scott, we'll go with you first. Are you concerned at all?
I would say, yeah, obviously it's concerning. I'm a Tottenham fan, so I know how it goes with not signing players. But I tend to think it has to do with the labor dispute, because I think all those short-term loans you've seen the last day or two, I think the MLS teams know it's going to be a lockout. I've kind of resigned myself to the fact that there's going to be a lockout. Is it a terrible decision by the league? Absolutely, but I think that's just where we are at this point.
Yeah, that's a really good point that you bring up. I know we saw DC United, Seattle, LAFC, Orlando, they all sent out players on loan, and I think that is pretty telling that, okay, well, obviously the players want to stay match fit when the season starts, whenever that may be. I know the league came out and said, yeah, April we want to start with, but it's looking more and more likely that a lockout probably will happen. And I agree. I mean, I said it last episode, and I'll say it now. I mean, I think it's really stupid on the league's part if they do go to a lockout, especially when we saw last season how hard the players fought to get that new CBA, and we somehow got a season last season. And then for the league to come out and say, yeah, we're going to rip up that CBA, and now we want to back out from what we agreed upon last season, and now we're facing a potential lockout. We'll see what happens, but like you said, I mean, to see a lot of players get sent down on loan, I think that's pretty telling that teams probably expect a lockout to happen, and the players that got sent down on loan, I mean, at least, they're still get to play some soccer in 2021. We'll see if a lockout happens, but Ryan, are you concerned the Union haven't made any signings yet?
So I think in a typical season I would be, but I also agree with Scott and you, Todd, that I think there's probably going to be a lockout. So in that regard, not super concerned. Also, in Ernst, do we trust, right? So even if there is a season, I have complete faith in everything he does. So I'm okay with it. Also, I'm used to transfer windows without too many players coming in as a West Ham fan. So I thought you'd appreciate that one, Scott.
Man, you had a one-up him, right, Ryan? I mean, you got, hey, at least, Tottenham have money compared to West Ham, so.
That's true.
I mean,
that's true.
Is that true? I don't think that's true.
I mean, compared to West Ham, come on.
Yeah. Well, Daniel Levy, I mean, he'll spend the money, maybe sometimes poorly. You look at Lo Celso, I have a couple.
That's a Tottenham? He never spends.
You're right, he doesn't
He spends salary sometimes.
Hey, look what you guys spent last season on Ndembele. I mean, that's a ton of money, and nowhere has West Ham came close to spending that amount of money. And then there was reports that Pochettino really wanted Lo Celso when Daniel Levy said, yeah, we want Bruno Fernandes, and then that whole thing gets botched and they get Lo Celso. So maybe they don't spend as much as you want, but they're definitely spending more money than what West Ham are. But myself being a Manchester United fan, we just spend money ridiculously, and more times than not, I feel like the players don't hit. So, and my sister's
9
over
goals
here.
today, right? 9 goals.
Yeah, 9 goals against Southampton, right? And my sister's over here sitting next to me helping keep score, a Liverpool fan. And Michael Edwards, whatever he sells, whatever he buys, it seems like he hits on everything. So being a Liverpool fan, must be nice having somebody that's in charge of transfers that knows what they're doing. But nonetheless, Philadelphia Union, like you said, Ryan, in Ernst we trust. And I was kind of thinking about this because we're recording this episode on a Tuesday, so you guys will be listening to this episode on a Wednesday. And hopefully by the time you guys are listening to this episode, the Union haven't released a new jersey yet. But I don't know if you guys saw the tweet on a couple days ago that the Union sent out and they pinned it. They mentioned they're going to release the jersey on Wednesday, but then they also said something else was going to get released on Wednesday. And that got me to think, is that a potential signing? I know Ernst Tanner a couple of weeks ago mentioned a left-footed center back, so could it be that center back that he was mentioning? Now, granted, if it is a center back coming in, Union fans probably aren't going to be excited because they want to see an attacking player come in. But like I said a few minutes ago, we do need somebody to be a backup to Jacob Glessens and Jack Elliott. So any signing I feel like Union fans should be happy with, but I feel like because it's not an attacker, they might be a little bit disappointed. But hey, like you said, like we all know, in Ernst we trust. So let's go ahead, though, and get to the final category, which is name the Union player. So in the final category, contestants will go head-to-head against each other in guessing the Union player I'm describing. I'll give 5 clues, and contestants can buzz in whenever they think they know the player. Contestants will buzz in by saying their own name. If a contestant answers wrong, that will freeze them out until the next question. Each question will be worth 3 points each, except clue 5, which is when I give you guys the player's first name. That will give you guys just 1 point each instead of 3. So remember, I'm describing players that all played during the 2018 Philadelphia Union season, but what I'm describing might not have happened in 2018. So are you guys ready?
Yep.
I am ready.
Here we go. Player number 1 is a defender. Hint number 2 is a homegrown. Hint number 3, his first ever goal came against Montreal in 2018.
Scott.
Good, Scott.
Austin Trusty.
It is indeed Austin Trusty.
Nice.
Hint number 4 for that was traded to Colorado after the 2019 season. And then hint number 5, first name Austin. I wasn't sure if you guys were going to get hint number 3, so that's why I put in traded to Colorado at 4, because I feel like both of you guys would have buzzed in pretty close if I would have gave that. But hey, props to you, Scott, for knowing hint number 3, and that gives you those 3 points right there. So we're going to go on to player number 2, which, again, hint number 1 is a defender. Hint number 2, scored a goal in a friendly against English club Bournemouth. Hint number 3, the 44th pick in the 2014 Super Draft.
Scott.
Ryan.
Good, Scott.
Jack Elliott.
It is not Jack Elliott. So here we go, Ryan. You can either answer hint number 4 or you can wait till hint number 5, which will just give you 1 point. So hint number 4 is jersey number 16. And do you want hint number 5?
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right, here we go. And hint number 5 for 1 point is first name Richie.
Richie Marquez.
It is indeed Richie Marquez. So you didn't get 3 points, but you did get a point there, and that's huge again. So, no points is definitely better than none. And Scott, I heard you kind of sigh there. So did you know it after you said Jack Elliott?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
With the Bournemouth hint, I'm like, that's Marquez, but the 44th pick just like rang in my head. I'm like, maybe I don't know this.
Yeah,
but...
so you kind of second guess yourself, and you should have won with your first instinct there. But here we go, guys. Player number 3 has represented the United States men's national team. Hint number 2, traded from Sporting Kansas City to the Union. Hint number 3, number 2 on the Union's all-time scorer list.
Scott.
Good,
CJ
Scott.
Sapong.
Nice.
It is indeed CJ Sapong. Hint number 4 for that was scored a hat trick against New York Red Bulls in 2017. And hint number 5, first name CJ Sapong is the player. And here we go, guys. Player number 4, hint number 1, was the Union's USL affiliate's first club signing in 2015. Hint number 2, traded to Nashville.
Scott.
Good, Scott.
Derek Jones.
It was indeed Derek Jones, and man, you were just rolling
killing
here,
it, man.
Scott.
You're
Yeah,
killing me over here.
I know. It's like Ryan's like, man, I just need one more hint, and Scott's like, yeah, I'll take it at number 2, and yes, Scott. I mean, that's very, very impressive. The other hints for that, for people that are listening, is hint number 3 was the Union's 4th overall homegrown signing. Hint number 4 is a midfielder, and hint number 5, first name Derek Jones, and player number 5 really doesn't matter here because Scott, you've got 3 out of the 4 players right and name the Union player, and those 3 points are so huge. But I will go ahead and give player number 5, and we'll see what you guys come up with. So hint number 1 is recently signed for USL side San Antonio FC. Hint number 2, selected 25th overall in the 2017 Super Draft.
Scott.
Good, Scott.
Marcus Epps.
I just talked about this. I just talked about this literally 10 seconds ago, how you're killing it after the second hint, and it is indeed Marcus Epps. And the other hints for that were number 3 was selected as the number 1 pick in the 2018 MLS waiver draft by New York Red Bulls. Hint number 4 was jersey number 20, and hint number 5, first name Marcus. And so, guys, that puts us at Scott with a total points tally of 20, And Ryan, you came away with points on the board, but unfortunately, definitely not enough. And you got 4. So
4. I mean, how am I supposed to compete against this guy?
I know, right? After the second hints, and I think maybe if you would have known that he was an intern for the union, maybe that had something to do with it. Maybe not. But
collusion. It's collusion.
I think so.
I will say, I do have an interesting Austin Trusty story.
Yeah, go ahead. I'd love to hear it.
So, one of the main things we did as interns was we did outside events at like youth soccer tournaments. And at one of the tournaments, we had Austin Trusty as a guest. And they happened to have a dunk tank. So one of the interns goes over to Austin and says, "You want to dunk me in the dunk tank?" And Austin's just like, "Yeah." So they go and they dunk him in the dunk tank. And that other intern just had to hide the fact from our boss the entire night that he was just soaking wet from getting in the dunk tank.
That's awesome. All because of Austin Trusty. So, the last couple of years, there's been a lot of negative things said about Austin Trusty, how maybe he had an attitude and that's the reason he got traded. But, I'm sure that's a story that not many people have heard about Austin Trusty. So you'd love to hear, positive, funny stories. So I appreciate you sharing that with us, Scott. And for you, Ryan, like I mentioned earlier, both of you guys, is your first time on the podcast, and unfortunately, you don't go on to the next round, but I would love to have you back on to the show at a later date just to discuss union soccer, whether that's during the season, before the season kicks off. So, like I said, I appreciate you reaching out, coming onto the show and everything, and, 4 points is better than no points, so...
Yeah, I was concerned about that, to be fair. So that's fine. I'll take 4. That's all right.
Absolutely. And to be fair to you guys and everybody else that's going to compete in this, I do think the questions probably are a lot harder than they were last season, where last season I wasn't giving specific years, where this season I'm like, okay, for the round of 16, let's spice it up. Let's give specific years. So it's like, yeah, in one sense, it does help where you focus on one specific year, but then at the same time, too, I feel like last year when I was just giving random union questions, they were probably easier until we got up to the semifinals and finals. But, yeah, Scott, just congratulations. I've got to imagine everybody that's still in this competition that are listening to your performance, they've probably got to be a little bit worried because that's the most points that we've had so far in the competition. I think that's one of the most point tallies we've ever had in the competition. So I think, Scott, you're probably going to be one of the favorites in the competition. Like I said, I had no idea what to expect from either one of you guys, but congratulations, Scott, for moving on to the round of 8. And Ryan, thanks for joining and everything. But before I let you guys go, do you guys want to go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you on social media?
Go ahead, Scott.
Coaster Guy 1 is me on Twitter. I tweet mostly about Philly sports, anything, mostly complaining, but they're Philly sports, Temple sports, other things.
Yeah. You got to go find out. Got to go follow Scott to find out what you're missing out on. What about you, Ryan?
On Twitter, I'm at the Ryan Dietz. Instagram might be just Ryan Dietz. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, again, I tweet about, obviously Union, West Ham, all other Philadelphia sports, among other things as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, as I always do in every single show, I'll put in their social media handles and everything in the show notes. And if you guys aren't following the podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, follow at Free Kick Pod, wherever you get your podcast. Check out it at The Free Kick, Todd Lewis, and then check out the website, thefreekickpodcast.com. And one last thing before we close this episode, we were talking about a lockout, and it may not happen, but the one thing with you being a West Ham fan, Ryan, you got to be impressed with seeing how David Moyes has West Ham playing.
I am feeling pretty great about it, to be fair. Obviously, hard loss against Liverpool this last weekend, but, Liverpool is coming back on form. When Mohamed Salah plays like he does, 2 beautiful goals, what are you supposed to do about that? You know what I mean? So it's okay. We've got Aston Villa tomorrow, get 3 points back.
There you go, exactly. And all the West Ham fans, I know there's a couple Philadelphia Union fans that are West Ham fans, and I'm pretty sure those guys listen to the podcast. So, I'm sure just like you, every West Ham fan out there are blowing bubbles, super duper excited. But, all of us Philadelphia Union fans will be super excited the sooner the season starts because, with that said, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.